Welcome, everybody, to episode 24 of the Sheepdog Brotherhood. I have with me, as always, Doug Hewlett, drinking his coffee, feeling good this morning. And we have a special guest today. We have Emily Berning from the amazing ministry called Let Them Live. And so we're going to be chatting with Emily today. And of course, we're going to stay within the theme, though, as usual, we may stray outside of the theme of our great Saint John Paul II quote, God has assigned as a duty to every man the dignity of every woman. Emily, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Brett. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you. So I should say, Emily and I have been on a podcast before, used to do the National Prayer Luncheon for Life podcast. Emily, I was trying to remember, is that about a year ago? Longer than that? I'm not really sure.
My memory is awful, so your guess is probably better than mine.
Yeah.
It's been a while, though. Yeah.
Yeah. I was trying to remember, how I learned about you and your ministry, Let Them Live. And no surprise to Doug, who will be nodding his head. I can't remember how I found out. Maybe
I can't either. Anytime I ask someone, how did we meet? I really can't remember. I mean, that's just how it goes. So we met somehow.
Emily, are you on dial-up?
No.
Are you using AOL?
Yeah, I had to tell Nathan to get off the landline. No, just kidding.
You're not even old enough to remember AOL.
I am. I remember, yes, AOL Messenger. And if you were trying to get on the internet, you picked your phone up and it goes, yep.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I'm just.
What I bet you don't remember, let's see, the push button phones on the wall. Remember that?
We had those.
Okay.
Yep.
There's no way you had these. The dial.
Nope. We stop at the rotary. Yeah, I do remember my mom, the cell phone, the first cell phone she had was like a Nokia brick. It couldn't be destroyed and it had a blue screen. So that was, yeah.
Emily, that's the industry I kind of grew up in, my background. And there were bag phones before that. Can you imagine carrying a purse with your cell phone?
Yep.
Horrible, of course, reception, but they were so cool because you could actually talk wirelessly while you're walking around. Anyway, Emily, we would be so grateful if you would just talk a little bit about yourself and then kind of transition that and tell us about the Let Them Live ministry, what you do, and how y'all got started.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I'm a Christian. My faith has really just taken off this year. It's been pretty amazing to see what God has done in my life and in my marriage and my husband's life. We both have just become very fervent Christians, which is amazing. So I start with that because that is absolutely my identity. But right now we're in Indiana, so I know we talked about that. But my husband and I live in Flagler Beach, Florida. So we're about 40 minutes north of Daytona on the beautiful Atlantic, and we absolutely love it. We've got our 3 dogs, no kids, but I always tell people that we've got thousands of kids just because of our ministry, because of Let Them Live. So, yeah, my pro-life journey all started in college, and then, before I met my husband, he wasn't super pro-life, and then we kind of came together and our story started, and he said, Emily, you're so pro-life. Why don't you start a pro-life organization? And I really had no idea what he was talking about because I don't know. I mean, how do you know how to do that? I got my degree in biology. I'm not an entrepreneur or a leader in any way. And so we went ahead and worked on it. We started Let Them Live. At first we had really no idea what we were doing. We still don't sometimes. But we didn't know what our mission was. And it's so interesting that we're on this podcast talking about men really supporting women and caring for the dignity of women, because our story and the story of Let Them Live begins with Nathan being the catalyst for supporting a pregnant homeless woman. So we were just married. It was a couple months after our wedding. We had absolutely nothing to our name, but we had received some checks from our wedding, which put our account above negative, which was awesome. finally felt a little bit secure in our marriage.
It's always good. Yeah.
Always good. At this time, we were living in a fifth wheel travel trailer at the back of his family's trailer storage business. And we were just kind of scraping by. But we had gotten some of these checks and it felt kind of nice.
So, Emily, I've got a question.
Yeah.
Your in-laws owned a trailer storage place. Was the trailer you were living in owned by someone else, and did they know that you were living in it, or was this one that you owned? I just want to clarify.
That's a good clarifying question. Yeah, so Nathan's task was to find us a place to live as a newly married couple. And he said one day, I found us a place to live. And I thought he meant like an apartment. And he brings me to Berning trailer sales.
Love it.
And he's like, welcome home. This is a trailer that someone abandoned on our property years ago. And it's ours now.
Wow.
And I'm like,
free. Not only did he get you a home, he got it for you for free.
He got it for us for free. We could take it anywhere we wanted.
Look, you glazed over that part of the story. Like, you just like skipped over a very important detail of that story. I'm sorry.
No, it's true. I mean, we were eating.
So just a follow-up question.
Yeah, go for
Did
it.
your relatives know that you were living?
Yeah, I think it was after the fact thing. Pretty much squatters. We're like, hey, by the way, we're living here now, you know? But pretty much everyone in Nathan's family has lived at Berning trailer sales in one way or another. So it's just kind of a rite of passage. So that's where Let Them Live started. And we started, you know, it's so funny too, like later on down the road when we started, you know, having donations sent to Let Them Live, we're like, okay, it's going to be at the trailer sales, 5220 New Haven Avenue. And so we would get these donors calling us like, I sent a donation and it's saying it's going to a trailer sales company. I'm like, oh yeah, that's us. We just have nowhere else to go. I promise you, this is going to Let Them Live. So just
Emily,
and we're at the trailer sales right now. So it's like
Emily, this should be on your about. I think this should be on your about page. This is part of the story.
The best part of it. Now, this is the best part of it. We were like newly married, living in this, I mean, pretty close quarters. Okay. And so the first year of marriage for us was a tough one. And on top of that, I had never really done the RV trailer life. So I didn't really understand that, like, you know, when Nathan's in the shower, I can't flush the toilet because then he's going to get third-degree burns like on his body. So the poor guy, I'm so forgetful. This happened on multiple occasions. I've never heard Nathan scream so loud. So we're starting like this organization. We're starting our life together. We're just trying to figure it out, you know, and it's chaotic, but it's just such a fond memory. And actually, like, we're recording right now. We're in a little bit of a nicer upgrade. We're in a motorhome, living at the trailer sales this summer in the exact spot where we lived when we started Let Them Live. So it comes full circle.
Well, thank you for that trip down memory lane. I appreciate you clarifying that you, in fact, were squatting in an abandoned trailer. That's a pretty fantastic origin story for Let Them Live. So
it is. It's where it all started.
Continue.
You know, humble beginnings. It just shows that anyone can do it. So, you know, at this time, like I said, we really didn't have any money. We were scraping change to buy dollar menu Taco Bell. I mean, we were doing everything we could. And we'd finally gotten some of that money in our bank account from our wedding, and it was awesome. We felt secure. So we were, it was beginning of December. I'm asleep. Nathan's a night owl. He just pulled an all-nighter last night. I don't know how he does it, but I'm asleep. It's like 3 a.m. He's on Facebook in a pro-life group. And there's a woman commenting saying, hey, my cousin has an abortion scheduled. You know, can anyone help? Like, any advice? A lot of people were saying, hey, like, we're going to be praying for her, et cetera, et cetera. But no one was offering like that tangible support. So Nathan reached out, and he said, hey, like, what's going on? So we were told that this woman had been evicted. She was living in her car. It was December. It was freezing, lost her job, lost her kids, just really anything that you could just she was just kicked down left and right. And she had her abortion scheduled in, I think it was like 3 days from when he reached out. And Nate, having, you know, his heart bigger than his brain, said, you know, well, what can we do to help her, you know, keep her baby and choose life? And she needed to get back into her apartment. And it turns out the amount that she needed to get back into her apartment was just about what we had in our bank account. I think we would have had like $100 left over. So we had about $1,200 in our bank account, and that's what she needed to get into her apartment. So Nathan said, okay, hey, what if we send you this money and you get back into your apartment? Will you cancel your abortion and choose life? And she said yes. And that's exactly what she did. She canceled it. She got an ultrasound. She sent us her ultrasound a few days later. And that's like the aha moment where we realized, like, this is what Let Them Live is going to do, because we had no idea up till that point. But it's so funny because in so many ways, just years later, looking back on the situation now, you know, you finally get that sense of comfort of having some money in your bank account and it's gone. But look what God has done with Let Them Live. It's become so much bigger than we ever thought. And at the time, Nathan wasn't really pro-life. I mean, I would say he was like apathetic pro-life, maybe. And he's the man. He's the one that said, this is not okay for a pregnant woman to be living in her car in freezing weather. You know, it's just a natural instinct of men to protect. And he did that. And I thought that was so beautiful. And that really jump-started his own journey into becoming one of the most pro-life people I know, into becoming a Christian, all of that. So that one moment, you know, was just so pivotal. And then, you know, after that, we went back to negative bank account balances and, you know, not knowing if we were going to figure things out. But it was okay, because that's something we could figure out. That's something that we could live with. What we couldn't live with is knowing, you know, a woman chose abortion because she didn't get the help she needed. So we could live with knowing that she chose life. And that's really what started Let Them Live. And that was that moment. And that's when we knew, like, you know, we started researching so many women, 73% or more in the United States, women have abortions because of financial burden. And there's a real need for support, financial support for women.
All right. Doug, this is my field. I could ask a million questions. Do you want me to run with this, or do you want to take a shot? What's on your mind?
Well, I'll let you run, but just okay. in general, I think, excuse me, I have to cough. I think when average Joe society thinks of pro-life, I think they generally think of women, right? Women-run organizations. You're the founder of Let Them Live, and I don't mean to take anything away from you and your calling, but it sounds as though your husband had a very impactful ignition to making this thing kick off, and I think men a lot of times see pro-life ministry or pro-life work as a very feminine. It's a feminine activity. It's a thing that women do, and men don't do that. I'm too masculine to worry about those kind of things. But in reality, you brought it up and you said it yourself that it's in our DNA. We're coded, we're designed, we're made to protect. And your husband, without thinking, which is generally how I do a lot of things for my wife, there's zero thought. It's just, action, right? Just go do the thing and not think about the consequences. But
wives around the world are just like having heart palpitations. Having a little anxiety over here.
I think it would be great at some point to also talk to your husband and hear, because your view, right? Your view is you shining the light on your husband and what he did. I'm guessing when he tells that story, one, he may gloss over the fact that he's squatting in a stolen trailer, but he would probably point to you as his motivation and catalyst for becoming, the man he is in his pro-life journey. Anyway, that's a great story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think it's outstanding to hear how God bestowed on you abundance and you turned around and gave that to someone else. And to the point that you made, look what it's grown into, and look how you've been able to, grow and develop not only as a family, but as a pro-life organization. So thank you for sharing 100%. That story. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been amazing to see the growth in both of us personally, but, in Nathan as well. Just like I said, he wasn't Christian at the time. He wasn't really pro-life. And for him, it just shows his heart, he's just a guy that makes grand gestures. I mean, when he was trying to get me, to be his girlfriend or whatever, when he was wooing me, he drove halfway across the country to bring me dinner. So he is a man of grand gestures, for sure. And so this just kind of fell in line with him. And my mother-in-law was like, "What are you doing? You just gave away all your money, your poor wife," because I'm the financial person. So, but it's been a huge blessing, and he would absolutely love to come on and share too, I'm sure.
So I'm going to take that bait right there, Emily. It's like, this should be a part 1 and part 2. So since we have you, and it sounds like Nathan's running around there somewhere, can you ask him if he'll be available for next week for part 2 of this? So that would be awesome if he is.
I will, yeah. See, and I'll tell him not to. He's kind of listening probably, but he'll probably forget. And maybe you'll see if there's any blanks that are filled in when he tells it. So.
Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about pro-life. I want to dive a little deeper into some of the things you said, and then touch on something that Doug was referring to, and that is for those who are pro-life but not in pro-life. In other words, they're not down on the front lines. So you'll hear a lot of things, and you might come to the conclusion that pro-life is about laws. It's about getting out and doing pro-life apologetics and convincing people why they should be pro-life. And those things have value, no doubt. But then there's the reality of the front lines. What's happening every day? I'll just stay with the story of the woman that you talked about, that Nathan reached out to. She's pregnant. She's, I guess, homeless. She's sleeping in a car. She's freezing, probably not well fed either, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. On and on and on. This is the reality of what's happening every day. Different circumstances for sure. Each circumstance is different. But I think unless you know that, you would have the impression that all of these women, let's say it's 1 million or so last year, who chose to get an abortion are the ones that are out carrying the signs at the marches and all that, my body, my choice and all that. That is just not the case at all. It's mostly women in very, very seriously difficult situations like the one you explained. And look what happened. All it took was for someone to say, "I will help you." How can I help? I will help you. What do you need in order to not make that decision that you're considering? And the key point there is the woman obviously wanted to choose life in the first place. She did. And we know this, I talked about on this podcast, great research that came out last year of women who had abortions now in their 40s. They interviewed 1,000 women. I think about a quarter of those had abortions. And 6 out of 10 of those said they didn't want to do it. They felt like they had no emotional support and financial support. Those were the 2 key things. Yep. So can you talk a little bit more as you kind of take us from that first story into how it grew from there? What does that real need look like on the front lines day to day, because I just think most pro-lifers aren't aware of the reality of the front lines.
Yeah, and that's an important part of Let Them Live, is kind of shining a light on what is really happening, because I think a majority of the pro-life space, if you will, has been taken up by the more legal, political activism type work, which is important. Absolutely. It's not just a one way or another, it's a holistic approach. But because the focus has been on that so much, I think it has kind of taken attention away from what's, really going on in the individual lives. And we have to focus on the women that are, considering abortion or walking into that abortion clinic, because at the end of the day, a woman finds out she's pregnant. She's not thinking, oh, okay, the Republican, person said this, the Democrat person said this, these are the laws. No, she's thinking about her own situation and the panic that she's going through and the fear. It could be that she's in a domestic violence situation. It could be that she told the father of the baby and he's like, absolutely not, get rid of it, or I'm leaving. It could be the financial. It could be she's struggling with mental health, or there's so many different things, but it's internal. It's not about the laws in that moment. She's worried about herself and how she's going to do this. It's not that she wants to go have an abortion. The fact that it's on the table in the first place is, why she's considering it. But our culture has, and Planned Parenthood specifically, has done such an amazing job of convincing the American people that, okay, crisis pregnancy, you find out you're pregnant, you're scared, don't worry, it equals Planned Parenthood. And they've done such a good job convincing people that abortion is this amazing solution. I think it's absolutely barbaric. I mean, we're in 2024. There's got to be other solutions, right, for women who feel backed into a corner and absolutely scared, who don't want to go in and have that abortion but feel like they have no other option. And so that's why it's so important to meet these women where they're at and hear their stories and understand what their needs are, because they really can make a difference. I mean, we've helped over 1,000 women since we started Let Them Live like 5 years ago. Choose life with financial assistance is kind of the main part, but also just saying, hey, we're here for you. Because like I said, so many men in the situation, it's a lot easier for them to just say, I'm out, right? You're pregnant, I don't want to deal with it, see you later. And so community, let Them Live, other organizations have to step in and kind of fill that gap. And that's such an important thing, that we don't overlook women in those situations and those specific moms, because they are real stories and it really can make a difference. I mean, we started with one and I'm absolutely amazed by what God has done, but here we are 5 years later and we've helped over 1,000 women choose life. Never would have thought that would have happened. But everyone can help save a life. It's really that simple. It solves the problem that I even had when I was in college of, look, I'm pro-life, but what can I actually do about this? How can I actually make an impact? And it's a lot harder to see an impact, when you're lobbying and things like that. Not saying it's not important, but when you can directly support one mom and help her choose life, and then see her baby after they're born and see that life and see their child grow up, it really hits home, and it makes you really understand that all of us as individuals can change the course of the future as it pertains to abortion.
Emily, how do you, talking about men, what is there a pattern for what goes on in terms of these women who are seeking abortion and the lack of support of men? Is there you touched on it there a little bit, but do you see a pattern in our culture right now that men are backing away from that responsibility for certain reasons? And then also speak to, for the woman herself, where does that support from the father of the child fit in terms of her priority, in terms of where she's thinking and how that influences her?
Yeah, I'll start with that second question there. The influence that the man, the father of the baby, has is absolutely significant. I mean, it is what I've seen just in our work with Let Them Live is that can actually make or break. That can make or break it. And I can understand that being married. That's your rock. That's your person. That's the person that you're supposed to be going through this with. Or even if it, you get pregnant, a woman gets pregnant from a one night stand, you're hoping that that person is going to help you, even if it's not in, let's get married type of way. I think that's just the human condition, is that we don't want to go through scary things alone. You want to have someone by you that you can rely on, that you can share with. And so when we see women who they're telling us, I don't want to have this abortion, but, my husband, my partner, my boyfriend, they said they'll leave me if I don't. There's a sort of, there's a sort of like a tug of war going on in her mind. And there's a sort of power in a way that men have that should, needs to be really wielded carefully, because men, maybe they don't realize this if they, get a woman pregnant, but they hold a lot of sway over what happens to their child, the fate of their child, whether their child lives or dies. And I don't know if that's just a symptom of our culture, because I think, like we talked about before, I just think there's a lot of deeply rooted problems and why men aren't stepping up. And there's obviously a lot to get into there. But again, to answer your first question into that, it's I think a lot of fear. Recently I was counseling a mom, and we were able to talk to her boyfriend. And I think he was just really afraid. How is this going to work out? How can we pay for this baby? It's kind of the same fears that the mom has. And you really have to bring them back to, you've got 9 months, the baby's not coming right now. And when the baby does come, babies eat, sleep, and poop, and you're going to be able to figure things out, right? So you got time. So I think a lot of it is fear-based. A lot of other times we've seen it's generational. There's another mom that we helped, and I think her boyfriend, the father of her baby, it's kind of like, on one hand, he wanted to be involved. On the other hand, he didn't grow up with a dad. He grew up with his dad being absent. And I think that's just what he kind of knew. And unfortunately, he has fallen more into that. Despite trying to be there for his kids, I think he just went with what he felt was natural to him, in a sense, which was abandoning, the mother of his children and his children. And that's really unfortunate, especially for people like us who, I'm thinking, why would you do that? Why would any normal person do that? But that's a generational thing as well that we see. But a lot of it has got to be fear-based, that maybe they'll be an awful dad that they can't provide. Or they're just a really awful person. It could be an abusive situation, whether that's physical or emotional or mental. And so there's a lot of sway. And so when we counsel women, that's one of the biggest questions. One of the first questions we ask is about their current relationship situation. Where's the father of the baby? What are his thoughts? Because a woman could be 100% or 99% like, I'm not going to go through with this abortion. And then if he holds enough sway in her life and he says, nope, we're not going to do this, then it could go completely the opposite direction. And so we do try to reach the father of the baby as well, to see if we can help kind of calm those fears as well. But he plays a huge role.
Thoughts, Doug?
You were talking about how, like, as a society, we're constantly trying to give everyone like the easy button, right? So you can, let's not take any responsibility for anything we've done. and abortion's the answer, right? You made the comment about a one night stand, about we've given people the option to be able to have like a zero consequence life. I mean, in theory, right? Like that's how that side of the world presents it. It's like, yeah, you can do what you want. You can live your best life. You can live for you and do all the things that you want to do. And it's funny, we have a society where we're constantly telling women they can do anything. You're equal to a man. You can do anything a man can do, except when it comes to pregnancy. And that situation is you can't go to college, you can't have a job, you can't do anything. This is going to end your life. And men have fallen into that, into that way of thinking and say like, oh man, this is going to affect me and all the things that I want. We went from being people that actually thought about others to being a people that only thinks about ourselves. And how does this impact me? How does this impact my weekends? Like I like going to the bars on Saturday night and getting blackout drunk and then, not having to worry about any of the consequences of how I'm living my life. And because I've always got this, contraception, I've got plan B, I've got an abortion. Like I can do anything I want. But I think that the natural outcome of that is to give men a pass to not have to be a man, to be able to just walk away from any responsibility or any of the decisions that you make and, live just a hedonistic, awful life. I don't know. Sorry. It's just, that's what I thought of when you were telling me that story.
It's also a bigger thing too. I'm reading this book right now and it's talking about how somehow as a society we've kind of morphed into wanting life to just be easy. So if any sort of obstacle comes in your way, like you don't have to deal with it, and if an obstacle comes in your way, just quit or whatever. Like life is supposed to be a straightforward path that has no sorrow and no suffering and no pain. And that's kind of the same thing that the abortion industry paints, which is ironic because abortion causes so much pain in so many ways, but they're painting this that, you don't have to deal with it. You can create the life of your own choosing. You can have another baby later on, whatever it is. And like you said, it's the selfishness of, I don't want to have to care for another human being that I actively took part in creating. And that's a huge problem, and I'm like every day racking my brain. I'm like, how do we solve this? How do we solve this problem?
I tell you one thing, I wrote an article about this because, to your point and referring back to that research I was talking about, that the majority of women who get abortions actually don't want to get abortion. It's just that they need more emotional and financial support. Wouldn't it be interesting? Let's pick Florida where you live, because there's if I picked a state where there's a chance something like this could happen with your governor there and the legislation, this would be possible. Why doesn't Planned Parenthood or any other abortion facility during the initial phase with a woman have to give them an options like let them live, right? So if you're sitting there and if you're really concerned about the woman and her life and everything that's important to her, and you're taking time to find that out, you will quickly discover that the reason she wants an abortion is because she's pregnant, homeless, and sleeping in a car and freezing. And you'd be like, oh, okay, well, if we connect you to a resource that can help you with that, help you get rent so you can go into an apartment, help you with some food support, et cetera, how would that affect you?
Yeah.
And why doesn't Planned Parenthood give that information when they know those resources like yours and others, other pregnancy help centers, are available and have that kind of emotional financial support? Why don't the abortion clinics do that? So the reason is they are intentionally withholding that information. That's just a fact. They know it's there. Of course, they're intentionally withholding it. And to me, when you just talk about, first of all, that already is on the plane of morally evil, withholding information that can help the person. And then when you consider when they withhold that, what the result ends up being, the death of a human being, it's the most evil thing that I think you can even think about.
Yeah.
So with that, Emily, I realize that we haven't really told everyone like exactly how you find these women, or how they find you is probably the way it works. Maybe it's a bit of both. Can you kind of go through the mechanics of how Let Them Live works in terms of supporting these women, and then also what kind of people are coming forward to stand in the breach to help these women out?
Absolutely. Well, to kind of piggyback off of what you said, interestingly, and I would love to see this at a larger scale, I wouldn't say it's Planned Parenthood as an organization or even individual Planned Parenthoods as a whole, but maybe just individuals who work at Planned Parenthood. We have had maybe like 5, potentially more referrals from Planned Parenthood, different Planned Parenthoods. But again, it's not as a whole. It's probably just one person who works at Planned Parenthood knows of our resource. So I know it's possible to have Let Them Live, be in Planned Parenthood as a resource, because it's going to encourage that. Now, it's really hard because, like you said, and this is a whole other topic, but there's a lot of reasons why Planned Parenthood wouldn't want to push business away. But informed consent is huge for both the mom and the father. So that's actually just one way that we've received a handful of moms. The majority of our moms come from referrals from pregnancy centers, sidewalk counselors who are outside of Planned Parenthood that are equipped with our resources. Social media, we have a large social media following, so women might see a post or have someone refer them to us and reach out to us. Years ago, we had a mom, and she was at Planned Parenthood. She had already done her ultrasound, and she was about to go back for her abortion, and she was just scrolling on her phone on Instagram, came across a Let Them Live post, just felt this, like, I don't know, this sense, so she messaged on Instagram. Our social media coordinator happened to see it, connected her to a pregnancy counselor right away. That mom went into the bathroom at Planned Parenthood. Our counselor helped her walk out of Planned Parenthood like right before her abortion. We got her an Uber to go to the pregnancy center. So there's things like that happen. But we also have like a submission form on our website. So many different ways that women are finding us. And then on our end, it's equipping pregnancy centers and sidewalk counselors and other organizations with our support, because we realize that, supporting women is really holistic, and it's not something that Let Them Live can do alone. And I don't want that. I'm like, Lord, let's pop up some more of these things everywhere. Like, let's get more and more support. But our wheelhouse isn't what pregnancy centers do. We don't provide ultrasounds. We don't provide that in-person support most of the time. We don't provide that material support. But sometimes the pregnancy center, most of the time, they can't afford the cost of, paying rent for a mom for, 7 months and all of her utility bills and all of that. So if they go into a pregnancy center, they know that they can call Let Them Live in. Same thing with the sidewalk counselors. That's a huge thing, to be able to equip sidewalk counselors who are outside of Planned Parenthood and other abortion clinics, saying, hey, do you need financial support? Are you having this abortion? Because, we can pay your rent. We can help you pay things. They can feel confident in saying things like that because we really can help. And so that's kind of how the women come in. And then the kind of process that we have, you guys are probably familiar with the triage process at the emergency room. That's a process that we kind of, tweaked a little bit and made it specific for Let Them Live, but we triage our moms. And the big reason for that is, I think as Christians and as pro-lifers, we have really big hearts. We want to help everyone all the time. I think that's just our nature. But the reality is that I think the saying is, a jack of all trades is a master of none. And so we really wanted to focus in on those women that have that abortion scheduled specifically. They need those bills paid. It's more urgent. And so we triage our moms based on that. So our red moms our moms that it's like go time. Like, we got to get these bills paid. We got to, all hands on deck. This mom's got an abortion scheduled for tomorrow, pull out all the stops. Versus a green mom is a mom who's not considering abortion at all. She's pregnant. She's probably in a tough spot, but we have to deal with that immediate life or death situation. So once we triage those moms, then they're assigned to a counselor. We figure out everything that's going on with them. And that's when we ask the questions about, where's the father of the baby? And what's that situation like? What are your bills like? What are your stressors? What's your living situation like? Just get to know her. And then from there, we're able to develop a financial plan to help kind of get her on track. And that also involves some things from her end. So we want to provide our end and our support, and we want to make sure that she's also stepping up and doing her part, so that it's, both of us working to get her where she needs to be. So whether that's finding a job or we offer financial courses on budgeting and saving. So whether that's kind of being part of that, joining our mom support groups where our moms can come together with one of our amazing volunteers, Dr. Joy. So she works with them through just a lot of stuff. So it's become a lot more comprehensive, but essentially we take those moms and they come into our program and it's a lot more comprehensive. But we're able to help them with those financials. And then while we do that, while we're paying their bills, they're able to start slowly getting up on their feet and slowly taking over their bills so they can be the best mom that they can be. And that's what they really want. These moms, they just want to be the best mom that they can be. And I think they're afraid that they can't sometimes. And so our goal is to help empower them and remind them that they can, and they can finish that degree. Like you said, Doug, like they can get that job. They can be a mom and do these things. And we're here to help them do that.
How do you find support? Do you have a specific process? I mean, you're a nonprofit, and a typical nonprofit approach is, hey, let's just take our case for support, as they call it, and go out and talk to donors and get support, big support, or do you try to do something more individually? What is your program? How do you get people to support especially the financial needs of some of these women?
Yeah, money is very important with Let Them Live because, money comes in, money goes right out to pay for bills. So it's a little bit of both. We've really diversified our funding. So we have a few different programs. Obviously we receive grants. We also have our Adopt a Mom program, which is where churches or individuals or groups can actually adopt a mom and take on, her financial plan and help support her. And just get more connected with her. So it's more personal, more one-on-one. Nathan and I actually adopted a mom, which was awesome. So we got to be the ones that supported her and, just sent her little things here and there and just encouraged her. So those are some of our other programs. But our main source of support, when we started Let Them Live, we started it on social media. So we're a very modern, digitally technology driven organization. And so a majority of our donations, it's like crowdfunding. So we kind of created our own little GoFundMe, I guess, platform. So anyone can go online. You can see the campaigns that we have, certain stories of certain moms. These are real moms that have come into us that are looking for help. And we raise money for them. So individuals just like you and I can give, $100, $50, whatever it is. I think our average gift is $52. So it's your typical crowdfunding. And it's a lot of people helping one mom, which is so beautiful because, like I said, a lot of us are pro-life and then we're like, but how can we actually make a difference? And so we have we have tens of thousands of donors coming together to save lives, which is really cool. So that's kind of the main way that we do it. And we put those requests out on social media and just doing things like this as well. I do radio interviews too, and people hear about it for the first time. We had this crazy guy named Mason, pro-life Spider-Man, climbing some buildings for us.
Oh, I know him.
Yep, raising awareness. We love Mason. Just
it's not Just to be clear, that's not your husband, Nathan. He's not the Spider-Man.
No. Mason.
Mason.
Like,
okay.
yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I have realized in the last year how closely Mason and Nathan sound. So
yeah.
I've had to make clarifications. But yeah, no, if Nathan started climbing things, I would have a heart attack and kill him. So he'd be in so much trouble. But yeah, so it's really just a lot of people getting together to make sure that these moms are taken care of, which I think is really beautiful. I think it shows the community aspect of it. And the moms are absolutely grateful and humbled that there are strangers from around the world that are supporting them. And I think organizations like Let Them Live and any other organization that, is structured like this, I think that's what changes the world. I think when you have strangers that are supporting you, it kind of softens your heart a little bit. And I don't know, I just think it makes the world a little bit of a better place.
So, Emily, I have a question. I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey. I mean, you're a fairly recent college graduate, right? Certainly in the last decade. And I'm curious, what was it like being pro-life where you went to school? Did you encounter any challenges there being pro-life? Were you actively pro-life? Was that something, a position that people knew about you? And then maybe what was that journey like to becoming pro-life? Was it always how you were, or was there a journey there? I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I grew up Catholic, and I think it was always just kind of a thing that we were told, but I don't think I really knew what it meant. I remember I was in youth group one time and we got these t-shirts that said, "I survived Roe v. Wade," and I would wear it, but I had no idea what it meant. So I really, I'm sure I would have been against it had I known at the time, but I wasn't really knowledgeable. So it started when I was in college, really. In high school, I think it was the same thing, whether abortion just wasn't a huge hot topic political issue at that time, or I was just a high schooler that, was only concerned about myself. I really wasn't taking a position, I guess, but I would have called myself pro-life. But in college, it's so crazy because I really can't pinpoint when or how or what, but I had this whole plan for my life, like going to study biology, going to be a veterinarian. I had my whole life planned out. And then all of a sudden I get this just feeling, and I can't describe it as anything other than like the Holy Spirit, God just being like prompting me. I was like, you know what, let me see if there's a pro-life group on campus. And there was, but they were just at the local Catholic church across the way. And so I went and I joined, and I said, hey, like, do you guys do anything on campus? And they're like, no, we just meet here at the church once a week and just talk about pro-life stuff. And I was like, okay, but I'm pretty sure all the stuff that needs to happen is on campus. So I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden I just had this fire lit under my butt. And I was like, I just became this, like, I started reading, I started researching, and I just became like fervently pro-life. And so then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to take us out on campus. No one else wanted to do it. I think they were afraid, but I was like out there every day talking to people. I was like, trying to change minds, and slowly everybody in the Students for Life group started just dropping off. I think I was making them uncomfortable by just going and doing activism. So I had to, I was like a lone wolf for a while, but I had to rebuild this group, and I did, and it was awesome. And we had this amazing Students for Life group. We were changing minds left and right, having conversations. I even got to the point, I was in the school newspaper probably once a week about, they were reporting on me doing some display or something. And then it got to the point where we were wanting to bring a speaker to campus. So I went to school at Colorado State, and Planned Parenthood was right across the street. I'm pro-choice type student government, situation. And I wanted to bring a speaker to campus, and we didn't have enough funds. So I applied for something called the diversity grant, and it was to raise awareness of differing perspectives on campus. And that's what it was for, was to bring speakers and to host events. And I was like, I want to raise awareness of a different perspective. So I applied for it. I did everything by the books. I get an email saying, sorry, we're not giving this to you, because it was like they were just handing it to me on like a silver platter, like, because you're pro-life, because this is a pro-life viewpoint. And so then I called Alliance Defending Freedom, the attorneys that do free speech lawsuits, and they do it for free for students. And I ended up suing Colorado State University for discrimination. So this was my like activist era. We won, and they got rid of the diversity grant because it was not a diversity grant. And we were able to bring our speaker. And from there, I think it just really started growing in me. So I started skipping classes. It was like, it became from like 4.0 to like C's get degrees, you know? So the last couple years, I remember I called my parents up my junior year of college, and I was like, hey, I know I want to be a veterinarian my whole life, and that's what we are all going to plan on, but I'm going to be a pro-life activist. All right, see you later. And they probably were
Surprise.
just like, what are you talking about? So I just, in a moment, I just changed my whole path. And yeah, I started skipping class, doing pro-life activism on campus. And then when I graduated, I didn't really know what I was going to do, but I ended up going to work for the Leadership Institute, which is in Arlington, Virginia. It's an amazing nonprofit. And basically LI does a whole lot of stuff, but the part that I got involved in was becoming a field rep, where I would go to other college campuses and help start or help grow conservative and like pro-life groups on campus. And that's where I met Nathan, was at the Leadership Institute. So that's kind of the journey, but it just felt like it happened in an instant. And it's like once I started realizing the severity and the urgency of abortion and the need for someone to advocate for women, I mean, I was just all in. I was outside of Planned Parenthood. I was, doing everything I could do. Like I said, bare minimum for college. I'm like, sorry, mom and dad, I know you're paying a lot of money for this, but I can't go to physics today, So, and just, that's kind of where it began. And that's just where my heart landed. And then Nathan was really the encourager. He's always a supporter of me. And he said, Emily, after the LI contract was up, I went and worked and did some campaign fundraising, and I absolutely hated it. That's not for me. He's like, you should start a pro-life organization. And, that's kind of where we ended up. And the funniest story of all of this is we started Let Them Live. This is before that first mom. We didn't really know what we were doing. I was really struggling. I was like, God, I really don't want to do this. I kept trying to open every other door possible, trying to avoid the calling. And eventually I said, okay, God, I will go ahead and do Let Them Live. But there's two things I don't want to do. I don't want to have to do pregnancy counseling because I think I'm going to fail at it. And I don't want to have to fundraise all the time. And those are the two things that Let Them Live does. So that is where we are. I always tell people to be careful when you give God stipulations. But yeah, so that's kind of my journey, and now it's just who I am. There's no separating Let Them Live from Emily Berning. So
now, is this also a full-time job for Nathan as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we started, and we just kind of went all in. We're at the point when we started Let Them Live where, we don't have kids, it's us. So we pretty much just, we went all in. Nathan had some crypto, and cryptocurrency is what started our Facebook ads for Let Them Live. And we put every penny we had in. We did some little gig work on the side just to fund Let Them Live, but it has been our full-time job for 5 years. So, yeah.
That's outstanding. I love that story.
Y'all, Emily, and then if I could just say, because Nathan's a guy and this is a podcast for guys, but as Doug and I were coming up with a name for what we wanted to do, and we landed on the Sheepdog Brotherhood. One of the reasons, if you look at what sheepdog do, obviously they protect the sheep, especially from wolves, right? And so whether it's a true manifestation of a wolf in a person, where you talk about the degrading women and things like that, or it can even be like an emotional kind of, dark cloud or something like that, whatever. All of us at times, and certainly women in the situations like you work in, need someone to stand in the breach, someone who stands in the gap and provides that bridge, if you will, in order to give them the help that they need. And that's really kind of was the genesis of the name. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at your organization, and now I'll just focus on Nathan a little bit. Here is a man, because you talked about the story that got you all started with this, who perfectly typifies exactly what we're talking about. It's like saw the need, stepped in the gap, and did everything it took. I forgot to ask you if he actually asked you if he could drain the bank account for this woman, but I assumed that he did. No.
Nope. He just did it. He nudged me awake. He's like, hey, you want to save a life from abortion? I'm like, absolutely. How do we do that? He's like, we're going to give this mom all of our money. And it was 3 a.m. and I'm just like so tired. I don't think it like processed. And then the next morning he's like, yeah, I sent this money to this mom. And I'm like, okay.
Okay. How are we going to eat today? Don't worry about it. But anyway, so question for you, and that is, it's men listening to this podcast, and it's like, what could you say in your experience so far with Let Them Live about how men, especially men, who are in a situation where they can help, right? They can do exactly what Nathan did. They can step in the gap. They can step into that breach. They can be that bridge that a woman needs, probably just temporarily, in order to get her over to the side of, in this case, choosing life, or it could be another situation, to the side of just giving her what she needs in order for her to feel supported, empowered, and move ahead in a strong way in her life. What would be your kind of encouragement to men?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. My encouragement would be that you're so needed, especially in this culture that we live in that, kind of puts men down. The need of men in not just Let Them Live, but the pro-life movement just cannot be understated. The value of men. I mean, from someone who absolutely loves the feeling of having a protector. Like, I know I can take care of myself. We're not talking about that, but having a protector who is always looking out for me, these women need that. They need you guys. They need someone in their life, because the man in their life most of the times has just gotten out of Dodge or has abused them, and they don't have that person. And so, whether it's through Let Them Live or your local pregnancy center or whatever it is, whether it's donating to support a mom or helping in person. Like, example, we had a mom in Texas. She needed help moving this weekend. She didn't have a car. One of our staff members, she's like, oh, my husband can help. He stepped in the gap to do what her boyfriend who left her wasn't going to do. So sometimes we really, really need men to just step in. So like I said, whether that's, the financial support, just emotional support, prayers, sending in, we have many opportunities for people to send encouragement to our moms. So that comes a long way. It goes a long way for men, or just physically stepping in to do the things that us women, we don't typically do. I talked to a woman who was pregnant the day after her husband told her she was having an affair and left her. She found out she was pregnant. And now all of a sudden, all the stuff that the guy does, right, mowing the lawn and, fixing things around the house, she doesn't have that. And so then the men in her life stepped up. And so sometimes it's just as little as that. And it's just knowing that there's also someone around to be a good fatherly example for the child that they're carrying. And that's something that Nathan has filled as well, is when there's absent fathers, not that he can fulfill that role fully, but to be a good example, a good role model who is there for when these kids grow up and they need some guidance or they need some direction and they do need some, man to man, or, they need that support from a guy. That's what guys are for. And so just the encouragement that there's so much that you guys can do. There's a huge role that you play, and to not let anybody tell you that just because this is, a woman carries the child, that you have no role to play.
Thank you. So, Emily, it's been about an hour. Doug, unless you have any final questions for Emily, because you'll never get to talk to her again. I'm just kidding. We're going to close this. Any final thoughts, Doug?
No, I thank you so much for sharing your story and
Absolutely.
even your pro-life journey, right? I mean, I think sometimes we forget how we got to where we are, and hearing yet that journey that you've been on, maybe that'll resonate with some young lady that perhaps listens to this podcast for some reason, right? Just to hear that it's okay to stand up. It's okay to go against the grain and go do something that other people aren't willing to do. And that's, man, kudos to you for I'm sure that wasn't easy back then.
No.
But just to see what a beautiful impact it is. Yeah.
Now looking back, best decision we've ever made. So I thank Nathan for that. But you guys, he'll definitely want to come on and talk too. So
let's go. So we'll try to schedule that. Before we sign off, though, Emily, for the gentlemen who are listening to this, how can they find out more about you and Let Them Live?
Yeah, letthemlive.org is our website. That's a great way to figure out how to get involved, to donate, to support. We've got lots of single moms who need help right now, especially with multiple kids. So any support is needed. You guys can always email us too at info@letthemlive.org. We're always looking for more connections in person in case we have a mom that pops up that needs some sort of help. So we can call upon you. And then also on all of our social medias, I mean, every social media, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, the list goes on. We're there.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's an incredible story, clearly led by God, and just can't wait to see how this continues to evolve over time. And just thank you to you and Nathan and all your team, all your donors. What a wonderful thing. And thank you for your work.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Emily.
God bless you.
Have a great day.